right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, fellow Pandemonium travelers, this is Seattle Pandemonium Shutdown Day 193 by my count. A little rumble strip for you. So, what's going down? What's happening? What's good in the hood? So you can see the West is still in flames. I heard him wreck it with that crystal method name of the game. It rained yesterday, which was nice. Kind of gave everything a little bit of a rinse off. Maybe took some of the smoke out of the air, but it's still crappy, as you can tell. But what's going down is, it's all about federal politics. Like, I could get into some local stuff, and like the pier collapsed the other day. One of the piers down on Alaskan Way, like on the Seattle waterfront, they were doing some work on it, and it kind of like broke and fell into the Puget Sound. It just fell into Elliott Bay. It's just done. And it's indicative of this whole thing. Like, you have the West Seattle Bridge, is this sort of big long bridge that goes out of the city up to West Seattle, which is actually south of Seattle if you're not following the topology. The bridge was declared unsafe to use. Unless I haven't gotten an update, it still is that way. This was a fairly major, I think it's 4 lanes. I think it's a 4-lane, 2-way both direction bridge that handles a lot of traffic, and it's just been declared unviable. So that's the state of the city. It's just falling apart. And now, right here, as we go across the Aurora Bridge directly in front of us, I try not to think about whether or not this is all safe and everything is fine. This is one of the narrowest bridges in the state, by the way. It may not seem like it right now, but that's because there's not that much traffic. You get a bus and a couple of semi-trucks on here. This thing gets scary. A van like that one right there, yeah, it gets scary. But what's going on? The national politics, the bizarre. I get it. I know what it is. I understand what they're trying to do. But Joe Biden, Democratic candidate for president of the United States, comes out, and the first thing he does at his press conference yesterday, or was it a town hall? He pulls out his phone and plays the song Despacito into the microphone, and then acts like, haha, and he pretends to dance to it. I get it. You're pandering to Latinos when you do that, but it's like so bizarre and ham-fisted, and I want to say unrequested. And like, just the other day, I saw there's a Trump, a pro-Trump, the Latinos for Trump sort of Twitter feed that is in Spanish. Maybe it's Portuguese, I don't know. But they played one of their campaign ads, a propaganda video about how Biden is like a socialist, and he's friends with Bernie Sanders, and they're arguing for socialism. And there's a whole bunch of people from places like Cuba, expats from Central and South America who fled communism and socialism, like Venezuela, and that will frighten them. And the ads are good, as opposed to, yes, I played a song that is a Spanish name through my phone into a microphone. That means you should vote for me if you're Latino. It's conflicting messaging, but all of this relates back to, I was having a conversation in a private group chat. There's a phenomenon that all of this stuff operates under, right? So there's a young Latino person, let's say, voter who's like, oh, I gotta vote Democrat because those Republicans are terrible racists or whatever, right? And they're not going to see the Joe Biden Despacito clip and scratch their head and go, what the hell is that? Like, they're not gonna see it, right? Or they're gonna see it and be convinced by it. They're gonna be like, oh yeah, see, I like that song too. That means Joe Biden identifies with me. And they're doing the same thing with Kamala Harris's shoes. I think I talked about this, like, God, was it last week? The media ran multiple stories about how Kamala Harris was wearing black Chuck Taylors. If you don't know what Chuck Taylors are, they're Converse sneakers. They're shoes. They're what you would call tennis shoes. And they're black, and they have like all kind of a white tip on the toe. And anyways, they're doing that with Biden playing Despacito now. Okay. Again, all of this stuff is happening within some kind of cognitive sphere. And the cognitive sphere, well, you're in it right now. You're listening to me talk. You're alive. You're conscious. You've found your way to my content somehow out of all the shit that's out there. And you're waiting for me to make sense of things, right? You're waiting for me to tell you something interesting or original or insightful. Okay, you're thinking and existing. You are in this cognitive sphere. Now, the cognitive sphere has a certain amount of bandwidth in the sense that you're really only awake for 16 to 20 hours a day. That's basically everyone. You might be awake at a different time of the day than other people are, but at the end of the day, there's a certain amount of eyeballs and brains paying attention to reality all the time, every day. Now, some subset of that is spent doing, like, literally doing work, like doing jobs, right? Like doing tasks. Hopefully, you get paid for doing those tasks if you're doing tasks. You don't get paid for doing chores around the house, but that's a separate issue. We need to make, like, personal robots for that kind of thing. But there's only so much attention from so many people every day. And within that sphere, you then manipulate people. And for lack of a better word, you manipulate people. You influence other people to get what you want within that sphere. Now, there's direct threats, there's implied threats, there's like logic and reasoning, like, oh no, you should get up and go to work because you want to get paid, because you want to pay your rent so you don't get evicted, so you don't end up homeless. Like, that's a logical chain of reasoning, again, still within this cognitive sphere that we're all part of, right? Now, don't get me wrong, I don't want to get too weird about this, but there's a mind economy, basically. Like, stuff that grabs people's attention. For example, terrorism. Terrorism gobbles up a large portion of the attention economy, the emotion economy, the mind economy. It forces you to pay attention to the act itself and then the reasons why the act itself was performed. Now, the media operates off of, well, in part off of hysteria. So, why run a subtle headline that is reasonable and accurate and, and understandable and, not crazy, when you can run a deranged headline that garners fear and paranoia and hysteria and then causes people to click on your link so you get your ad revenue, right? And then you do this consistently, and then you feel, at least, maybe you at least feel as though you have control over the cognitive space of large numbers of people. Like, I feel like I want to repeat that or reiterate that because I think that's important. You, as a news outlet or whatever, you at least feel like you have cognitive control over large numbers of people. And you have every reason to believe that that's true. Why? Because the USS Maine. Because the Gulf of Tonkin. Because Iraq War II. The media act in concert with government to make stuff happen that people, some people want to happen. They influence that to happen. Now, again, all of this occurs within the cognitive sphere. The cognitive sphere is, I mean, it's a little bit abstract, of course. It is literally everyone paying attention to things all day long until they go to sleep, and then the next day they rejoin the cognitive sphere. I think being asleep or being completely detached from reality, I don't know, meditating or something like that, you're still in the cognitive sphere, especially if you're sharing conversation and information with other people. Because you're sharing not just information, you're also sharing disinformation. You just don't know it's disinformation because other people haven't demonstrated that it's disinformation to you. Are you still with me? I mean, I feel I have like a tiny subscriber base because I talk about these kinds of things. But like, this is you and me right now. You listening to me right now, you're in the cognitive sphere, and I'm injecting into the cognitive sphere the concept of the cognitive sphere. It may not be really real per se, but the concept is true. Like, we all wake up every day, we all do a bunch of stuff, then we go back to sleep, and then we rejoin reality the next day. That's roughly what most people do. So, what is the everyday that we're rejoining? Well, the pattern is there. Everyone goes to sleep, and then they wake up, and then they go and do the same things again. They go through every day throughout the week. Then they have to buy a new tank of gas. They have to fill up on gas. They have to buy groceries. They take a pee and a BM at least once a day, I assume. Your tires on your car wear out over years. So run the time spans out. It runs out over decades. So if you can come up with a life plan for yourself, like, oh, I'm going to go to college and get a degree and become a lawyer. Well, what do you think people smarter than you, or more pernicious, or more, we'll call it ambitious, I guess, more aggressive than you can think of? A plan that spans decades or centuries or millennia. I mean, our founding fathers here in the United States laid down a plan that was expected to last more than at least their lifetimes, right? It was expected to last centuries. So the cognitive sphere is there every day, and it gets nudged. It sort of gets nudged in different directions all the time. Should you buy a gun? Should you not buy a gun? What city should you live in? What job should you try to get? Is it the end of the world? Because the media is basically telling me it's the end of the world, and it looks like the end of the world out here with all the smoke and everything. And you got people out here literally setting fires. Possibly all of them. We don't know. We don't know how many of these fires are set by people. But is it part of a bigger narrative, or are they at least seizing on the narrative to frighten you? Of course they are. Of course they are. And then, of course, we all fall for these various sort of cultural tropes and things. Go to college, go to school, don't drop out of public school, get married, have children, buy a new car. Like, all these various cultural tropes are, again, all sort of artifacts of the cognitive sphere. Go out, try to get laid. All these things. Okay, you can cross, you're fine. All these things, all the time, every day. Every day, all the time. Anyways, that's enough for me for one day. We talk to you guys later.